So primarily, when we talk about air quality index, AQI, basically the full form of AQI is air quality index, which is basically various parameters on which the air quality is assessed. Of course, in India, we actually follow PM 2.5, which is particulate matter 2.5, which is actually 40 times smaller than human hair. So it's very, very tiny. And then there's PM10, there's ozone, there's sulfur dioxide, and there's also carbon, in the sense carbon monoxide. So these together, these components, these parameters together, the composite of all creates and gives us a reading which is called the air quality index in that sense. Of course, globally, the standards of what is permissible or what is good air is very, very different compared to India, and those standards are actually given by WHO. Anyway, we don't strictly follow those standards, and right now the government is actually telling us that those standards, the global standards, will not even apply to India, as if Indian lungs are made of steel, as if we breathe some other air, as if we are some superhumans in that sense. Right now, a lot of times people confuse between fog and smog. When we see that haze outside our window, we think it's the winter haze, which we as children earlier knew as fog. But reality is that smoke, which is largely PM 2.5, and fog together creates something called smog, which is SMOG. And smog is what is actually prevalent in the entire Indo-Gangetic range and largely in Delhi NCR. So this morning, if more than 200 flights were cancelled, or the visibility was almost like 10 meters to 20 meters on Delhi roads, it was not alone because of fog. It was primarily smog that created that thing. Of course, this we talk about inconvenience for our aircrafts, inconvenience for our vehicles, inconvenience for transport. But more than that, this inconvenience of smog is to the lungs of our children and elderly. We need to understand that pollution affects different age groups differently. It affects our children and our elderly very, 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 very in a harmful way in that sense, and it's very, very dangerous. That's the reason why we have actually seen more number of cases of COPD, of pulmonological challenge, of asthma in various hospitals in the entire Delhi NCR region. So it's a gas chamber situation. Air quality index in India actually caps or tops at 500. Reality is that the private monitors show us that the air quality index in various parts of Delhi in the last 24 hours has been around 800, which is almost as if it's a biological warfare, as if it's some sort of a war going on, and we are all subjected to this kind of poisonous gas. We need to understand that, imagine in Zurich, PM 2.5, if it crosses 5, the city is shut down. And here, if you look at in Greater Noida, in Gurgaon, and various parts of Delhi, PM 2.5 levels, which is particulate matter 2.5, that has already crossed 400, 450, and overall AQI is around 800, 900 in that sense. So it is extremely dangerous. What this does is that there's high concentration of this particulate matter that people are breathing, which actually through our nose enters our bloodstream. It is not something which is only affecting our respiratory system, and that's the reason why this year we've seen doctors coming and telling us that bad air is not just a lung problem, but it also causes skin disease, to eye irritation, to rheumatoid arthritis, to brain damage, to many other health concerns in that sense. And people with comorbidity or preconditions, they are affected more because of this kind of air that we're talking about. So one need to understand that this is not just a Delhi specific problem. Of course, Delhi gets disproportionate attention, and rightly so, because this is the capital. And if you are not able to take care and protect the capital of the country, how are we going to take care of smaller towns and villages and other places? In that sense. Right now, of course, the thing is that it's not just Delhi, which is very, very polluted. If you look at Lucknow, the match got cancelled primarily because the AQI there also was 400 plus. Similarly, in Mumbai, in Kolkata, in many other places. Delhi gets more attention and also more pollution sometimes compared to other towns is because of various disadvantage, meteorological and geographical disadvantage that it has. But also we need to understand that it's not just geography and meteorology that is affecting Delhi's air and that disadvantage that Delhi has. The number of vehicles that we have in Delhi, the private vehicles, as in that through some estimate, it is said said that the number of cars that Delhi has is equal to the number of cars put together of Bombay, Chennai, and Kolkata. So imagine the private vehicle regime. There's so much PM 2.5, almost 50% of pollution in Delhi is from private vehicles, mostly through these cars, and also, of course, the two wheelers that we have right now. And also the kind of urbanization that is taking place, not just in Delhi, but in Delhi NCR. If you look at the construction activities that are going on in Greater Noida, for example, or in Gurgaon, Faridabad, Ghaziabad, that is the main source of PM10, which is largely dust that we are talking about. And PM 2.5 and PM10 together is the major component of AQI or bad air in that sense. So, of course, Delhi, with its geographical disadvantage, plus the load of vehicles, plus in its immediate periphery, there are at least 15 coal thermal power plants that do not follow the emission standards of sulfur dioxide. So composite causes of Delhi alone, largely I would say that the local sources of pollution, be it through vehicles, be it through construction, be it through road dust, be it through thermal power plants or open burning of garbage, all of it together, and a very fractured governance is what keeps Delhi as a gas chamber every winter, and of course in poor to very poor category air through the year. See, this season and also in past years, we've only seen government come up with these band-aid, knee-jerk solutions. Work from home is a luxury that can only be availed by one class of people. A rickshawala cannot work from home. A vegetable seller cannot work from home. A traffic cop on the traffic signal cannot work from home. So work from home is a luxury that can only be availed by a certain class of people. Also, work from home is not it will perhaps marginally reduce the pollution. The problem with the entire pollution governance regime is that we only have been addressing symptoms, and with band-aid solutions, with knee-jerk solutions, with reactive solutions. Shutdown and lockdown cannot be a sustainable solution in the long term. What we need is to focus on the sources of pollution, look at long-term solutions, the sectoral systemic changes with regard to transport, our energy, our construction regime, our greenery. That is the change that is required. And unfortunately, what we've seen for several decades across political parties, nobody has that political will, political urgency, or understanding to take this challenge head on. What we keep relying year after year on these some lockdown and odd even and work from home and shutdown and lockdown, which marginally can improve the situation, but it can only be an emergency measure. That cannot be a policy prescription as the government is treating it as. I think it's very important for everyone to understand that this is an air crisis, this is a public health emergency, and we cannot find private solution to public problem. Right now, this can only be done by the government, and it's so unfortunate that despite for almost 3 weeks of terrible to very terrible air, severe to hazardous air quality that Delhi NCR has had, our parliament hasn't found time to really have a discussion on this. In fact, the discussion was scheduled for today, and then again, it didn't really happen. So that clearly talks about that all political parties lack that political will and urgency, and they're only making a fool out of people. This entire blame game, we've seen Aam Aadmi Party blame Congress all these years, and earlier blaming farmers. This year, of course, BJP is blaming farmers. Till last fortnight, BJP was actually blaming Punjab for its pollution, and now is actually blaming Aam Aadmi Party in that sense. And a citizen, a lung of a child, is not interested in this blame game, is not interested in the politician and their one-upmanship in that sense. It needs a sustainable solution, and that can only happen at the top. I think we need a national urgency. We need a discussion in the parliament, and we need to revamp our entire clean air program. And we need to do that at a footing, because almost 17 lakh people die in India every year because of air pollution. People who live in Delhi NCR, they're losing 10 to 12 years of their life. As per Lung Care Foundation report, every third child in Delhi actually has some sort of a pulmonological challenge and a stunted lung growth. So when you have that kind of a challenge, where there's science, when there's medical fraternity telling you the kind of emergency that this kills more people than terrorism, than malaria, than tuberculosis, than any disease put together, and if still the parliament thinks that this is not the issue number one, it's very unfortunate.